So we decided we were going to do a different episode. We decided this 2 months ago, Nate, something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
So
I think when the record was announced, we
yeah.
talked about it.
So obviously you see the title, you know what we're doing. We are going to be talking about Silent Planet's new album, Iridescent, today. And when they announced the album, Nate called me, or I called Nate. Somehow we were on the phone and we were like, hey, what are your thoughts on not listening to this at all? Like just going in blind. Now, we had heard Trilogy because that came out a long time ago. And that is on the album here. Now, we don't know if they changed anything or if it's the same, but outside of Trilogy, Nate and I do not know a single second of this album. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a first listen episode. We've done this a few times. We really like doing them. Please let us know if you like us doing them, because we can definitely do more. It's probably something that Nate and I like a lot. It's part of our relationship. It's actually kind of the ground level why we started the podcast. Is Nate and I used to do this all the time, is like, hey, don't listen to this album. We did a lot with like From Indian Lakes albums. We did a lot with Valley Heart albums. We'd be like, don't listen to anything. Let's listen to it together for the first time. We'll pause after each song. We'll talk about just that song and just give initial impressions. So that is what we are doing this episode. So if you expect a deep dive into these songs and all that, we probably won't get there. It depends how smart we are feeling right now as far as how deep we can go. But I am assuming with Garrett and how he tends to write stuff, this is going to be fairly like, I liked it, I didn't like it. It's not going to be like, yeah, he's talking about blah, 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 because his lyrics are so layered.
I looked at the first song's lyrics. I think it's track 2 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, will I want to read while we listen? And I was like, there's no chance, because it's hard enough to like read his lyrics.
That's
just
true.
On their own. And so I think that's something where, if you're listening, reach out to us after we post the episode, where we'll have a lot more time to have listened to the record and get into the lyric side of things. For now, I think we're mainly going to be all sound, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's fair. This is a fun thing of like, we maybe should have talked about this before the podcast, but I love how raw this is. We didn't talk about whether we were doing lyrics or not. We have done a first listen episode for a band like Caspian, who had very little lyrics. So we looked at the lyrics where we could, but that was mostly sound. Because of that, we've done that with From Indian Lakes, where we did talk about lyrics a little bit and stuff. So I think we're used to having lyrics. So I have the lyrics pulled up, but I totally get what you're saying. We're probably going to be out of our comfort zone reading. So we'll probably mostly listen to this and see if there's any lyrics that stand out from listening. But yeah, it does make sense to do kind of overall vibe, overall sound. So, all right.
And the last thing I want to say as we go into it, just building off what you said, Andrew, about us not listening to any singles outside of Trilogy, which we didn't really, that was like unintentional. We listened before we knew it was a single for the record. But it's been really hard. When we do stuff like this, it's like extremely difficult.
Yep. I almost a few times I'd like on YouTube, I'd see that they released a new song, and somehow in my mind, I'm not thinking when I'm on YouTube. I'm like, oh, new song. Yeah, I'll have to listen to that, and I'll like add it to my watch later. And then later I'll be like, oh, I'm lucky I didn't listen to that. So it's tricky.
Yeah, it's tough. And so I'm wicked excited. I think there's a lot of built up anticipation and excitement. So
I think it's fair to.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we might be saying the same thing. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think so.
Silent Planet has basically become that band for us in terms of like metalcore, heavy music. Growing up, it was Under Oath, Devil Wears Prada, August Burns Red, Oh Sleeper, and and tons of other bands. And to be fair, a lot of those bands are coming back in strong ways. Like,
Yeah.
we can talk about Under Oath's new singles another time, but Under Oath's coming back they're returning to their old style a little bit and rounding out their form again. I also think the newest Devil Wears Prada single, Sacrifice, is like one of their best in a while.
Yeah.
So like these older bands, they're not willing to die quickly or easily at this point. But in terms of newer bands, I don't listen to any new heavy bands or projects. None.
Yeah.
I just can't get into it. I find most of it generic or just doesn't excite me the same way it used to when we were growing up. But Silent Planet, man, I think they're the perfect culmination of all those years of growing up listening to that music. And it being done in a new way, in a different way, in an exciting way. And so what's unique about this record for us, I feel like, is it's like one of the only records and only bands we listen to now from this genre. So with that though, please let us know if there are any bands that maybe aren't as good as Silent Planet, or maybe you think they're better. That's great. But send us bands that we might like based off of this. But what were you going to say, Andrew? Were you going to say something similar?
I was going to say the exact same thing. Silent Planet, I think in both of our minds, is 3 for 3 album wise. And each album gets better and more complex in a lot of ways. And it's not that they didn't start out super strong, but like, honestly, their trajectory is actually almost scary at this point, that they've gotten almost so good that this was probably the first album that I was like a little worried for. So we'll see. Just because I was like, I don't know that you can keep up with being as consistent as they've been. So I guess we're about to find out. We'll see if it's 4 for 4.
And the album artwork doesn't help with my expectations because it's so sick.
Yeah, it is sweet.
I almost feel oh my gosh.
So I just saw the movie Dune not that long ago. Big epic movie. It's one of my favorites recently. It starts out and I'm like, I feel like this is just as like theatrical epic. Oh, that was insane.
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was Christopher Nolan films. I know he obviously didn't direct Dune, but the Hans Zimmer type of like explosive. Did Hans Zimmer do Dune as well?
Yeah.
So
that's why
the Hans Zimmer type atmospheric, heavy, bass driven orchestral stuff. That scared me, dude.
It did. I saw you jump and I was like trying not to laugh. Nate had mentioned before the podcast that it's raining at his house. And
exactly. I was thinking the same thing, dude.
It's funny because I'm hearing like raindrops at the beginning. It was like, okay, now Nate and I both are hearing rain at the same time. And then right as like Nate was about to say probably that, like, dude, I feel like it's just raining, or I don't know what you were gonna say, the biggest sound came in. Oh, that was funny.
That was sick.
Well, we
That's a
shouldn't actually
great.
belabor this. That was awesome.
Yeah, I know. The only thing I will say is
Yeah.
from the one thing I do notice is the track's name 112 and it's 1 minute 12 seconds long.
Oh, yeah, good catch.
But besides that, I have nothing.
I try to speak, but sometimes are too loud for words. My lungs collapse into the cadence of the earth. Lead me out past the place where our language met inside. It's your breathing. You hold your vows and say goodbye. It's your breathing. Spell out the wild west open eyes. Syntax lapses while the sunlight filters through. We'll fade away. We will chance light aftermath is zero. Wrapping me in oblivion.
All right. So Silent Planet's not a funny band, but there's so many times I'm just laughing at like, what the hell is happening? What were your thoughts, Nate?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that song, those, you can't see Andrew in my chat on Zoom here, but we literally just like kept mentioning bands that it sounded like. So the beginning, Garrett screams and the
Yeah.
riff was like as O Sleeper as it gets, I feel like.
Yep.
For them.
Yep.
I think that's their most O Sleeper section ever, to be honest.
Yep.
And then there was like a bit of TDWP in there. And then like at that second, not the chorus, but like almost like the bridge singing part that transitioned into the very small production heavy section with Garrett's screams that were kind of not light, but they weren't wicked heavy. That felt like a bit Linkin Park-ish. Yeah, there's just like so many. The reason why I think we were able to mention so many bands there is because this song took so many different shapes, in so many different forms. In the end, I mean, I don't even have a comp right there. I haven't heard an ending like that in a minute. What do you think?
So one of the things that Nate and I always mention with Silent Planet albums is that Garrett pushes himself vocally every single album, that if you listen to the first album versus their third album, he grows so much as a vocalist. There are multiple times on this song that I noticed Garrett pushing himself again. Him doubling up with the singing. He wasn't quite singing, but Garrett doesn't even really try to sing, and that's fine. He doesn't have to. I like him sticking to what he does, but there was almost like a melody to his screams during that chorus part, which could be wrong, but that struck me as something I hadn't quite heard. And then obviously that final scream part there. So I don't really listen to nu metal very much either. I do have a student who's really into it, and so he showed me this band Crystal Lake. I think Ryan Conda, I forget his name, but I feel like that's the closest comp I have, because they're a little bit like like a little bit that. So that would be the closest comp I have. But I mean, it doesn't sound like anything that they've done before. Vocally, for their clean vocalist, who I forget the name of, and I apologize. Thomas,
I think, right?
That sounds right. I'm sorry. I'm really bad with. I basically know Garrett and Alex are like the two that I know by name, but yeah, we'll say it's Thomas. For the clean vocals, one of the things that's almost just a staple, O Sleeper, clean, not O Sleeper. I'm doing it again. One of the things that's a staple Silent Planet clean vocal is just picking a melody that's about as high as any human could possibly reach, especially him, and you just have to belt it out to even hit it. So it was cool to hear that. That's just like a staple to Silent Planet's music. And yeah, I thought it was a great first track. Makes complete sense why they do it. The song had probably more dynamic range than they tend to have within one song. They don't tend to go as low or as high as that within the same track. That was a lot. So that was awesome.
Yeah. And I think because we're transitioning into Trilogy, I'll mention this. Like, I felt like, I don't know if Trilogy was their heaviest song to date. Obviously, like it was in a certain sense almost like their brightest song to date as well, because it has a lot of dynamic as well. But the ending breakdown is so big and so heavy. And I wonder if the largeness and the just like grandness of these two tracks, well, I guess even the intro, these three tracks are gonna continue throughout the record, if it's gonna stay this big. Yeah. All right, should we listen to Trilogy again?
Let's do it.
See if it's the same.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if they change it up since the single.
It's always red. The static in my head, it's always red. The static in my head, it's always red. The static in my head. Return to the hands of Titan.
All right, Nate, what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think a few things. Well, first off, it is exactly the same.
Yes.
I mean, maybe they might have done something with like the mastering just to make it like fit, but
the album,
every like I've listened to the
parts.
song enough to know it is the same. And I think the first time I heard Trilogy all the way through now, I think, I'm not saying it's necessarily my favorite Silent Planet song, but I think when you look at just like quality, I think it's their best song. Like if I'm trying to be as objective as possible, I think it's their best track. And one thing I find interesting is that and I might be misremembering or misquoting or whatever, but I had thought that Trilogy was supposed to almost like be this like summation of the first three records. That's why it's called Trilogy, like, and carrying on that sound while still transitioning into the new sound. So I'm wondering if this will be, if there won't be any more songs this like this, almost like
moving forward.
Like I felt like Translate the Night was very, very different than anything Silent Planet's done before. And I wonder if Trilogy will almost be the song that's like most comfortable for like Silent Planet fans, and the rest of the songs will be pushing us and stuff. So I don't know, that's my thoughts. What are yours?
I might go as far as to say Trilogy is my favorite. I might. It's up there with like songs that I don't get tired of. And I'm glad in a lot of ways that they released this far enough out that I could hear this one before, because I have I've really enjoyed this song. Yeah, it sounds the same. The one thing that sounds different with Trilogy and always did, it seems like the guitars, I don't know if he's using a 7-string, but they're definitely tuned lower than I remember. Oh sleeper. I'm gonna do that this whole episode. Silent Planet ever doing on any of their stuff. Now, I felt like for Translate the Night, they were tuned about that low as well. So that might just be a guitaring change that I noticed at Trilogy, and that's going to continue. But yeah, it's heavy, it's dark, it's awesome. And when Nate's it was really fun to watch Nate, and we could jam to this one because we knew it, so that was fun. But moving forward, we don't know anything. We can't jam quite the same way.
And as we head into Second Son, looking at a few things based on the track list, the name of this song, I think, is this is a song I'm most excited for just from the name standpoint. Both in terms of just overall the name, but also with their first mother, first father sequence. I wonder if this is keeping up with that. I don't know. We'll see.
That's a good catch. Nate's already gone a lot deeper than I have. So far, great album.
Trilogy was track 3.
That's
a lot simpler.
I did notice that. I did.
Yeah, I know.
I could have said that one.
That one's easier.
That was yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's do Second Son. All right, Nate, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh man. So definitely wasn't disappointed by that track.
No.
I mean, I'll save the most obvious part for you. Not that you don't. No. I'll say that for you. One thing I do want to say is I know this is really, I'll say something about the music too, but right now the rain has stopped and the clouds have still remain kind of, it's gray, but also the setting sun is piercing through everything and creating this orange and pink fading everywhere, and it's so beautiful. And so listening to this record while seeing this is really cool. But anyways,
that sounds great.
So my favorite part was the end, just the transition after the last chorus into that instrumental. It wasn't big, it wasn't maybe a lot of people will look over that, but I thought that was really cool and really interesting what they did. I can't really explain it. I have no idea what they did, but that was really sick. And then I'll just leave the obvious for you here.
So I think there's an obvious, and I think there's a maybe not obvious that I'm gonna throw out there as an idea with you. So Garrett sang, right? like we can count that as singing, right? Right?
Oh yeah,
I think that's
especially
officially. And then
especially
did
the
Garrett sing later, like
yes,
lower?
that's what I was gonna say.
That's
was
what I was,
especially
'cause-
singing.
because he definitely was doing his like scream singing, which he did more in this than I've again ever heard. That "Why Do I Hurt My Body" like part was amazing, and once he did it, I was like, hell yeah, like that's exactly what I wanted. And then later, the lower part, I'm fairly certain that was Garrett, and you seem just as certain. So I was so questioning it and stuff that I typed Garrett fast and I misspelled it in our chat. But I was just like, hey, is this Garrett? So yeah, those were pretty obvious things. Something really unique about this, for me at least, the guitars had weirdly, and this is a weird thing to say, very little melody in the song. There was a lot of just like, I don't know, like muted guitars would probably be, especially at the beginning, that I was like, I don't actually hear notes from the guitars. It's just distortion, or just something. And there were times that like the drums would keep going and instruments would basically drop out and there's just background stuff. But again, it was almost like fuzz. And it really made the chorus then that the guitars have more straight up like a chord progression. And then especially the end part that Nate mentioned, where there's this really high part, like high singing part, or like, I don't know, more angelic sounding part, really stand out, because there was almost like just these really dark, deep sounding parts that weren't like, oh, those are guitars making it dark. I don't know. It's a really weird song. Honestly, it's very weird. I feel like drill down, I feel like if you listen to it straightforward, it's probably the song that reminds me of maybe like Wage War, or like at times there's other bands that sound, I mean, that Silent Planet's never sounded like, but it probably sounds like metalcore more at a base level. But I feel like if you drill down, it's really unique as a song, and then also really, really unique for Silent Planet. So
Yeah,
definitely didn't disappoint.
I actually thought of Wage War 2 with Garrett's vocals as well.
Yes. Yeah. I thought that was the
one
main
band
reason.
that I thought of.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move to the next one. Panopticon. Yeah, I think
That's right.
Yeah, cool. We're gonna stick.
This is
with
one
it.
of the singles.
Oh.
I forget which one. Maybe the first one after Trilogy. I know this was one, and then Terminal was one.
Yeah, I do remember seeing Terminal.
And I forget if Anhedonia was one. I forget. But anyways, for us, it's not a single.
No. For us, hopefully it's just a good song. All right. You ready?
Yep.
Panopticon!
All right, mate. Let's get back into it. What did you think?
Yeah. So, I don't know. Is that just like a really, 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 really low guitar tone, or is that bass? I have no idea.
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both. I think they have a 7-string guitar, or they've just decided to add some crazy fuzz to some bass on top, like that they're actually doubling up bass, which would be weird. I don't know that I've seen that. There were definitely times that the guitars, they are guitars, cut out and you could hear the bass doing the same notes below it, especially kind of the beginning verses parts. But yeah, it's weird. It's real weird.
I think it's definitely one of the most catchy riffs I've heard from Silent Planet, to be honest. I know it's like so unusual that it doesn't even feel Silent Planet, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, this is the type of song that when you listen to it, you're like, okay, they really are transitioning into something new and taking steps into new territory. But just so catchy, that the riff there. And the first part of the breakdown at the end I thought was fine, but the second part I really liked. That I think that hit a little bit harder. And yeah, I thought it was a really solid track. Also, what I liked about it too is just how straightforward it was. Like, I think with every other song so far, it's been in its own way all over the place, and that's not a bad thing. But it's nice to have a song then after those that's a bit more straightforward for them. But yeah, what do you think?
Similar thoughts. The guitars were some of the weirdest in that, but it is kind of a bouncy riff. Like, it's so weird because there's times that they definitely are jumping the beat a little bit, so it's not as straightforward. If you're bopping your head, you're good for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they kind of beat you to actually the downbeat. Garrett's high scream at the end was awesome. I like hearing Garrett's high scream. I think that's awesome. What else? There was something else. Just overall, I thought it was a really good track. Straightforward. I do think in a lot of ways this is actually already gearing up to be the best Silent Planet from definitely a production standpoint. This song feels so well produced because you have to produce this song differently than other songs that they've done. There's actually a lot less there, even though, there's some like really big theatrical elements in it, but like the fact that the guitars and bass were just kind of synced up most of the time means there's not much else. It's not like they're balancing off of each other, doing different things. They're doing the same thing. So you're just pushing that front. You have to record and engineer it very different than the other tracks. And this felt so well produced. So I already am feeling like I don't know much behind the scenes, where they've recorded this, how they recorded it, but it does feel like it's probably their best from that standpoint so far. I feel like everything's so clean and crisp.
This is like I'm not a big video game guy, but I also feel like, I don't know why this stuck out to me. I feel like this would be an incredible video game track, whether it's like just the instrumental or the track as a whole. Like the type of like anticipation it builds and the steadiness of the song, how consistent it is. It would be I don't know, it creates a really cool atmosphere for something like exciting like that.
I completely agree. And I also know this isn't what you're getting at, but I play the hell out of this on Guitar Hero.
That's exactly what I meant.
That's the video game that I wanted on.
Guitar Hero, Bass Hero, whatever.
Exactly. All right, let's move to track number 6. Track number 6 is The Sound of Sleep. All right, Nate, what were your thoughts?
Before I forget, the little like synths at the end there,
Mm-hmm.
really cool, really interesting.
Yeah.
And they kind of play off, or at least in my from first listen, they seem to play off the like really bright synths that came in when Thomas had that like
Yes.
initial section.
Yeah.
They're coming in differently at the end, but I felt the connection. I don't know if it was there or not.
Yeah.
I obviously from a track name, you think of Vanity of Sleep, from their last record. They, despite them moving on, they still they can't help but recall to the past. Yeah, I think this one probably is, and you mentioned this, Andrew said this sounds like it could have been on their first record. I think this song sounded the most normal, probably.
Yep.
And the only other thing I wanted to say was the like fuzzy fade, or not fade, like a staticky. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. The staticky section, very similar to Trilogy. I
Yes.
think the fact that they're continuing that, I think, is really interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I want to say, similar to what I even said, this is probably the most Silent Planet sounding song by Silent Planet so far, but I love that they're still adding stuff that I haven't quite heard. Thomas had some falsetto that was real nice. I really like that. I don't know. There's a lot that they added to it. The synths were sweet too. I totally agree. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was like crazy different. But I mean, even if it sounds like Silent Planet, I don't think anyone's complaining about it. And it only sounds like Silent Planet because there's like a few ways that they've always done stuff that's always been unique to them that they went back to. So if it sounds like Silent Planet, it's not sounding like anyone else. They're one of those weird bands that I think they're getting more and more popular. I would say that they seem fairly popular at this point. Yet I haven't heard, and this is probably because I'm not in the scene like I used to be, but I haven't heard copycats yet. Like they still feel like whatever they kind of pioneered is still truly them. So
Yeah.
I'm into it.
And I mean, I think a huge part of that is, I mean, I'm not just me, I'm more of like, I focus on the vocals first.
Yep.
I just think nobody screams quite like Garrett does.
Yeah.
Nobody has his cadence. Nobody has his specific type of rawness. Obviously, there's a bunch of other raw vocalists, but I feel the same way listening to Mike from Devil Wears Prada recently, listening to Sacrifice. I listen to that song and I'm like, despite them going on for so long, and all these bands copying them, same with Under Oath, all these bands copying them, there's still something very distinct about them. And I think vocally that is extra true.
That's very true. I'm going to turn the light on above me. So let's pause this 1 second.
Sounds good. Pause. 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 Pause.
Now I can see better. I don't know if you can see better. I mean, you have to actually be able to.
I can see clearly now. The rain is gone.
Yes, it is. All right. You ready?
Yeah, I am.
All
ready.
right.
This, speaking of two things I want to point out before we listen to this one. This is probably, in terms of song titles, the second song I was most looking forward to.
Yeah.
Also, explicit. Oh my god!
You know what's weird? It doesn't say explicit for me.
Really?
Music? I don't know what's happening.
My Apple Music says explicit.
Watch, I'm gonna get like a bleep in the middle of it.
What if they say crap in this song?
They might.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
That would be bad. We would
That'd
stop
be pretty
the podcast
bad.
immediately.
Yeah, we'll block it out.
Well, I guess
All right.
listener discretion advised? Question mark.
Yeah, I think that's the
Um,
perfect warning.
If you haven't heard any curse words before, or are unsure if you've heard any curse words before, and you don't count any curse words that I may or may not have already used during the episode, please beware. All right,
All right.
let's move to track number 7, Alive as a Housefire. Change your face insurrection. Take a ride, come inside. Be a start for making strife. Swerving left and stealing right. They all make up that take your life. The only remedy is solidarity. And now I know the death of my pride is the cost of peace. Cold as the empire that ends. Fuck the system. 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 Break the prism. Fuck the system. Fuck the system.
So where was the swear word? I didn't hear
All I heard was silence the system.
it.
I guess I got the clean version.
All I
Okay.
heard was bleep the
Bleep
system.
the system. Yeah, exactly.
That was-
I think he was saying friend the system. I think that's the takeaway that Garrett wants us to have, is that we are supposed to friend whatever system.
Yeah, because they have our best interest in mind.
Yeah, systems are inherently good, even though people are bad. You can always trust the system that people have
Because
created.
systems are not people,
Exactly.
even though they're made by people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a million thoughts. I think first off, just working backwards, the F the system part, like, that was really weird.
Yeah.
Like the way he did it
Yep.
and his cadence and his tone and like the pacing of it
Yep.
was really interesting, really weird. The first half of the song was probably, I think, the best part of the record so far, maybe. If I'm
Yeah.
just like isolating like
Yeah.
one section, the first half of the song was like crazy. His
Yeah.
he had that like kind of Northern Fires thing going on where he has that like rap scream, which came up again. And then also midway through, it was that like classic Silent Planet. It starts with the ambient, like
Yeah.
ambient music, just like a section to give you time to breathe. I was really hoping they would pick it up again at the end, and rather than like going like wicked heavy like they started, it was kind of like this middling heaviness that was like really like harsh and uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I think it was an interesting direction to take it. I think it's the type of thing I like the ending better expecting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that song was sick. It did not disappoint. The
Yep.
title. What do you think?
My only issue with the exercise that we're doing of a first lesson is there are parts that I just immediately want to go back to and listen to, like that ending.
Yeah.
And the analytical part of my brain needs to go back to the beginning to figure out the timing. The timing is
Yeah.
weird. And I think we've been using Garrett's name a lot, so I'm going to try to actually talk about the band, because that beginning section is not something, to my knowledge, that Garrett has anything to do with. And the rest of the band is just showing off that they are honestly some of the better musicians in metal. Like, if you don't play metal music, but you listen to metal and you're not sure if metal is hard to play or not, I don't have an answer. Some's easy, some's hard. That beginning part is extremely tricky to play. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be so locked in. And what's weird is they're not even, so they're locked in with each other, but that does not mean that they're doing the same thing. So drums and bass were doing different timing than the guitar was. The guitar was doing this weird thing, and then drums and bass were making sure they were hitting weird offbeats and stuff. So everyone has to play off of each other, but you're not playing together. It's the weirdest thing to do. It is very tricky. And the impressive thing is writing that. It's one thing to like pull out my guitar and try to figure out what they're doing, whether I could or whether I can't, I don't know. I'm going to guess no, because it's so good. But even if I could figure out what they're doing, for me to come up with that naturally would be insane. Like, that's incredible. So I just have to give a shout out to, I mean, I guess the Alex, Thomas, and Mitch for what they're playing. Like, that was insanely good. So, yeah, I'm not going to say that ending wasn't the best part of the album, but there's a couple other like pretty sweet parts of the album. So I'm just so excited to re-listen to this whole album when we're done too.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
Honestly, great album so far. Oh, and yeah, when you mentioned when it came down to the ambient part, I almost messaged you like we've been here before, just because that's like, that is what they've done. Traditionally, that's how they get their biggest dynamic, is they go down to low ambient and then they go huge, and then they go back down to low ambient. So that is fun. I think they've done it once or twice on the album, but it feels comfortable. It's cool when they do it. It's like, yeah, this is Silent Planet. Like, I was in the back of my mind expecting it, but I'm so glad it's here. So,
oh, for sure.
All right, let's move to track 8. Track 8 is Terminal, which was one of the singles. Don't know what number. I want to say I remember. I think that's the one that I accidentally stuck on my YouTube list. So like 2 or I feel like
I think it was their second after Panopticon.
Yeah,
and the music video had Terminal and Liminal with it.
Yes.
So it was like I'm assuming these songs are meant to be listened together in some fashion.
Then I will let you have the decision. Do we listen to them together and talk about them separate after? Or
I think so.
Okay, we'll listen to them together. So if you're following along with this exercise, we're about to do 8 and 9.
The hourglass is vacant, centers to medication. You can feel me, but I'll never be I'm slipping to sedation. The seconds are contagious. Can you tell me if I'm terminal? All these pills won't scratch the surface. If the cancer's in my soul, am I terminal?
All right, Nate, what were your thoughts not only on Terminal but on Liminal?
Yeah, so Terminal was maybe the first Silent Planet song I've ever heard that I felt like is a different genre completely for them. This is more like Deftones, like different type of this is more rock, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I thought they did it really well.
Mm-hmm.
I was entranced, I was captivated, and
Yep.
it like really was a comforting song
Yeah.
in terms of its sound. And yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought they did a great job. And they sounded very natural doing it. It didn't
Yeah.
sound like an experiment.
Yeah.
I think that's what I appreciate the most about the song is it sounds very natural for them. And then I thought Liminal was interesting, atmospheric. I think it adds a nice bit of distance and space. I liked the middle section a lot.
Yep.
It makes me really intrigued. Anhedonia, or however you pronounce it, the next track, I'm guessing is going to be heavy as hell.
Yeah, I think so.
After all this.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I thought, and a perfect placement, these two tracks. Like,
Yeah.
It basically goes one heavy, 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 heavy until you get to Terminal and Liminal. So I think it's a nice change of pace and good placement. What about you?
Yeah, I thought the same with the track placement. I thought if anything, it's probably late for that big of a change, but they did a good job with the dynamics of the first tracks. And you don't listen to Silent Planet to not have them punch you in the face with music. It's not like you're like complaining like, oh man, the whole album just like was heavy. Like that's kind of why you listen to Silent Planet. But they do a great job within each song of giving you dynamics. And then at this point, I think it felt really nice to have that space. It's a simple song, so it's hard because it's easy to overanalyze compared to their other ones that have so much. And I'm talking Terminal here, that have so much to talk about. Terminal is just smooth and it's not lo-fi, but like it is like it's chill. Like I could have fallen asleep in the sense of like I just was really calm during it. But it did fit their style. The overall production still fit the album. Melodies and stuff that they did were great. I thought they did a really great job. Liminal then, I like the distorted voice. I am excited to look, see if someone has the decoded words that they're saying during that. It does give me the feeling that there's a bigger concept behind the album. Anytime I hear that type of stuff, there is a lot to this album as far as production, and it's very theatrical for them. Like I know I just like, I'm going to probably reference Dune a little bit here just because Dune is one of those like spectacle movies that has spectacle sound to it. And this is like one of those spectacle metal albums that has that spectacle orchestral big sound to it. And so from obviously 112 first track and now even now that we're this part of the album, there's been a lot of it up to this point, just really theatrical big stuff happening. So I am curious to see if there is an overall, if there's a through line concept with it that they're trying to piece together with the music, or if they just went with like, I think there's musical concepts happening, even if there's not lyrical concepts. So I thought it was great. I thought both were good. As Terminal was ending, I was like, oh, does it really go into Liminal here? But Liminal kind of it brings it back, and it does have some instruments playing the melody that the voice would have been singing in Terminal. So I thought that was cool. But I'm completely with Nate. I think track 10, if I were to take a guess, is possibly going to be the heaviest song on there. I feel like they're like, okay, we gave you something quiet and now we're going to punch you in the face. If they don't, that's fine, but I feel like that's the route that most bands would take. So So let's move to track number 10, Anhedonia.
Keep me numb, but I'll break the silence now because there's blood on my lips from biting my tongue. The people place their faith in false idols. Lost inside a fever dream. Set fire till the floor dry. My body knows the fate of the damned. Worship your greed, spread your disease, filling your coffers with duplicity. I see the flesh as it hides in your teeth. It's the skin that you took when your lips brush the cheek of the savior you follow. Ostensibly preach to the sheep who will follow you into antipathy.
All right, Nate, what were your thoughts on Anhedonia?
Yeah, so definitely wasn't as heavy as I was expecting it to be,
No.
even though it was definitely really heavy compared to Terminal. Was that song completely sung by Garrett?
I think maybe.
Yeah, that's my
didn't-
guess.
I didn't hear much of Thomas in that. I also did see here, it looks like Mitch sings as well. So there's a
Oh.
chance that, and also another thing that I totally missed, Garrett apparently since 2020 is credited with some guitars. So
Oh, that's really cool.
So there's a chance that some credit that we've given Thomas, or even chance that what we've credited some to Garrett could be Mitch, and that's not a voice we're used to hearing. But I still think that was Garrett if I were guessing. But I just, in case one of them's listening and they're like, hey, you didn't mention that I sing or that I play guitar, we apologize. We don't know. But yeah, I would say
just
that
bring
was
us to
probably
the
Garrett.
studio next time.
Yeah, seriously. We'll teach you some stuff, show you how it's done. I'm kidding. It would be a complete learning experience. Yeah.
Let's be quiet as a church mouse, just soaking it all in. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just viewed that as like a really solid track.
Yeah.
Like overall, that was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
For them as well, I think, in terms of like, obviously it wasn't straightforward for a lot of bands, but for Silent Planet, I feel like I wasn't ever like shocked or anything. I really liked how crisp the heavy parts were in this song. Like I felt like Garrett's voice was really thick and really crisp, and yeah, I mean, they were just really solid. And then the chorus, you just got to get used to it. I feel like just not expecting that type of chorus from Silent Planet. And so despite me saying, hey, it's pretty straightforward, pretty like Silent Planet, what you'd expect, the chorus and Garrett singing or Mitch is singing, or if Alex is singing, I don't think he sings on it, but yeah, like just getting used to that it's different. But I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably, so it wasn't as hard as I expected. And the problem with expectations is then I was like, I kind of wanted it to be heavier. Like I felt like I was due to get punched in the face, and I did, but I didn't get, sorry, I got slapped in the face. I didn't get punched in the face. Does that distinction make sense? So I wish that it was heavier, but that's not actually the song's fault. And it might not even be the band's fault because I haven't had a problem with their track listing yet. So we'll see what else is here, and maybe if they could have moved something around to be heavier to appease me, the one person who really cared that it was heavier than it was. But That being said, it was more straightforward. There's still, I believe, again, Garrett sung the whole thing, and I'm really liking hearing Garrett push himself to do that. After I said, like, I don't need Garrett to do that, not his thing. Now that I'm hearing him do some singing, I'm like, thanks, Garrett. Thanks for doing that. Like, that might be the biggest takeaway so far from this album is once again Garrett pushing himself to do some weird stuff. The other thing that's hard, because we're only doing music, is this could be the best lyrical song, and we don't know. Like, I'm really excited to dive into the lyrics because I do feel like I'm missing something that makes Silent Planet one of my favorite bands, and it's the lyrics. The lyrics really matter for them as a band versus other bands. So just once again reiterating that even a song like this that I might be like, I don't have problems with, I think it's great, I think it's straightforward, but it's not outstanding compared to some of the other ones. I could be missing a huge portion of what makes the song great. So all right, 2 songs left. We will move on to track number 11, which I will say, because there are at least 2 songs that are like instrumental, I'm glad that there's 12 tracks. I'm going to just throw that out now. That is nice. So we at least have 10 fully flushed out like song tracks, and then the other 2 instrumental tracks. All right, let's move to track number 11, Till We Have Faces. All right, Nate, what are your thoughts on Till We Have Faces?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on this song. I think yeah, so first off, because I forget, so it's better to start at the end. The ending there was interesting, the way they just like faded out really quickly there.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard them do something like that before. Andrew mentioned 2 things in the chat that I think are both true. One is this definitely feels like their most like Bring Me the Horizon type song. There's one other track at the beginning of it I felt like had some Bring Me the Horizon, but this song definitely from beginning to end is the most Bring Me the Horizon of all their songs so far. And is this Mitch singing? It doesn't sound, it's definitely not Garrett. That's obvious. And it doesn't sound like Thomas.
No.
And so
unless they have someone else join them, that's
well,
not because sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go. I was just gonna say, yeah, you go.
Silent Planet has people join them all the time. Like,
and they don't say it usually.
And
either.
they don't say it.
At least on the first record, they didn't say it. I think on the record since then, though,
Spencer,
they have said
they showed. I'm trying to remember
Yeah,
who else
and
is
Corey from Norma
true.
Jean.
Yep. But those are also big hitters that like
Yeah,
you kind of like, I don't know the politics of this stuff, but like, would a label be like, yeah, we're cool if Spencer joins you and you don't say that it's Spencer Chamberlain? I'm not sure that Spencer's label would love that. Like, and like, why wouldn't you flaunt that? That's how you sell stuff. I'm not saying that it's all about sales, but that's got to be pretty sweet. So this could be someone from another band. I know they're close friends with a lot of different bands, so it could be someone else. I want to re-listen because I know they're really close friends with like Dayseeker, and I'd love to listen and
yeah.
see if it's him, because he'd fit great on this. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'll let you keep
No,
going.
you're good. Another thing is a thing that I noticed, obviously the title Till We Have Faces. First thing I usually think of is the band Red, which Andrew and I grew up listening to.
Yep.
And they have is the whole record called Until We Have Faces?
Yeah.
However, more prevalent for Silent Planet is Till We Have Faces is a book by C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
And Silent Planet, their name comes from a book by C.S. Lewis called Out of the Silent Planet.
Yep.
So I think, obviously, as Andrew said, we don't have time or the energy to soak in the lyrics with the music as well. I'm sure diving deep into this and how the song works within light of the book would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I also, last thing I want to say is, I think that ironically enough, this might be Mitch's only chorus, if it is Mitch.
Yeah.
I honestly think this is my favorite chorus on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple overall, but it just fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I think it fits seamlessly. It like really lifts you up and it makes you feel something really powerful. I love the chorus on this.
Yep. I agree. I actually thought towards the end, I was like, this is one of my favorite songs on the album. But that's hard. That's a really hard thing to say, especially after a first listen. But I love that chorus. I agree. That like it lifts me up, makes me feel good. I think it's such a well done song. There was a lot there to talk about. A lot of layering of parts, some stuff that sounds like Silent Planet, some stuff that doesn't sound like them at all. And anytime we mention other bands, I think the best way of saying, like, the reason we're saying that is not like, oh, they stole from these other bands, but it's showing that they continually are sounding different as a band. We didn't just every song go, oh yeah, this just sounds like them, which shows that they're pushing themselves. They're doing stuff that they don't normally do that sounds like other bands and what they stick to. So you got to give them props every time. Every song has been like, for the most part, there's been very few parts that sound very comfortable. Like, oh yeah, this is definitely Silent Planet. Like they don't even probably have to work to write that part anymore because they've done it before. You can tell they're pushing themselves. And again, I don't know how they've separated these vocal parts at this point, but I love that there's so much variety of vocal on this album. So, all right, before we do this, before we go to our last track, number 12, I want to make fools out of ourselves if you're cool with it. I want to guess what the last track sounds like before we do it, because Silent Planet kind of has a like last track sound,
That's true.
a little bit. And so what I want to see is your expectations. Is this going to sound like a Silent Planet closing track? Is this going to be harder than it normally is? Is this going to be even softer than it normally is? What are your expectations for closing track?
Okay, I'm gonna try and be as specific as possible.
Yes.
I think it's gonna start out minimal production heavy, like a lot of stuff going on, but not like full. it's gonna build up, and it's gonna end really powerfully, but not with like a breakdown.
Okay.
It's gonna like end strong, like almost like imagine a car that's like
Yep.
it starts slow and then it speeds up and it's going fast. It doesn't do some type of jump off the ramp or anything, but it just keeps accelerating. And then I think it's going to come to like an abrupt stop. And yeah, now
Yeah.
my second guess, even though I know we're not allowed second guesses, is actually this is a real limb. I
Yeah.
wonder if
It's
it will
probably
be
what
an
I'm gonna guess.
instrumental.
Okay.
I
That's
wonder
even
if it'll be an
more.
instrumental.
That's even more maybe on a limb than what I'm gonna guess.
Okay, you go.
Okay, because terminal and liminal are so close to the ending here, I'm not gonna guess, even though I should, exactly what you just guessed initially, not the instrumental.
Yeah.
I think the trajectory you have is what I would have expected and what I still kind of feel like it is. But to go out on a limb, I think it's gonna be hard, which I'm gonna be completely wrong. I can feel it. It's gonna be hard
don't
and then
know.
it'll end soft. But I wouldn't have guessed it this way, except for how the tracks are set up, that it kind of feels like they can use one more. Till We Have Faces wasn't terribly hard. So I feel like it
Yeah.
might be hard. It's also not that long if we're looking at timing, which does play into possibility of instrumental. But we'll see. We're about to make, one of us is going to be wrong, and one of us could be majorly wrong, me.
Both
so
of us will
we're
probably
about
be
to
wrong,
see.
but we'll see.
Probably. It's going to be like an 8-bit song. It's gonna be
I
like
think it's gonna be
weird.
some type of like alt country
Yeah.
folky tune.
Garrett's credited for guitar because he learned slide guitar
Yeah,
and banjo, and he's gonna play it. All right.
that's what's gonna happen.
I'm feeling it. All right. We are moving to the last track number 12, Iridescent.
What I said.
I'm not wrong yet. It needs to explode.
I need Garrett to kind of like start to slowly scream over this.
They're gonna come for us to make us pure as bleach and permanent.
For the first half, I was like, man, we need to get the hashtag Andrew was wrong trending. But the last half felt like I was a little like there was a little saving grace there at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were your thoughts, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting where I don't know. I don't. I'm. I don't want to make people upset,
Mhm.
but I feel like, I mean, I really love the ending of that. I think it was like crazy and all over the place and really interesting. But that song, on the whole, kind of underwhelmed me.
Mm-hmm.
I I think maybe part of it is the fact that their closers have been so big
Yeah.
or have had such grand buildups.
Yeah.
When he's saying screamed iridescent, it just kind of feels flat to me.
Mm.
And it's so quick that I didn't really feel anything. I don't know. The one thing I will say is that it does a good job of really matching the color of the album title,
Yeah.
of the album cover. The it is this explosion, but it's not necessarily like bright.
Yeah.
I'd say. Um, and so I think it does a good job, this song in particular, of mirroring the album cover. But I don't know, maybe I'll like it more a lot on follow-up listens, but I
Yep.
kind of was underwhelmed overall, outside of
Yeah.
the very end, which I thought was really cool and
Yeah.
crazy and manic.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You start with saying, so started softer, started actually like a Silent Planet closing track usually starts, where I think he goes a little bit more spoken word for the last track. That it's very much about his cadence and the words he's saying, and it's not about screaming, but Garrett is doing his screaming, just not heavy. I feel like that's normal Silent Planet closing track for me. The ending is very much not at all. That is just heavy Silent Planet. So during Till We Have Faces, I had wondered, I was like, man, this could have been the closing track. Like, I really felt like there was that space. It was just really nice, really smooth, but there was a lot to it. It felt really layered. I'm going to say that the buildup for this to be the closing track, I am going to agree with Nate, doesn't pay off if your expectations are for your mind to be blown. Maybe lyrically, this does fit as the closing track. We don't know. But I would actually, at this point of the album, say, incredible album. I might change up some tracks. I do think there's a chance that song structure, or not song structure, just where the songs are placed in the album, they might have been able to make Till We Have Faces the closing track, which I feel like fits a little bit more, and just extend it a little longer, maybe. And that might feel more like, okay, man, like I ended and it's like an emotional ending, where I do feel like Iridescent, especially because we were focused less on the lyrics and more on the sound, wasn't as emotional as an ending as it could have been. And maybe if they just stuck with how it had started and hadn't gotten all crazy hard, it would have felt more emotional of an ending. But yeah, I do think they could have actually improved the ending. From a critique standpoint, which I feel like we've been really nice. So might as well give a little critique here. So, all right. Before we do our favorite track, let's just talk. I'm going to kind of go into this a little bit here, but we're pretty long here, so I won't go too long. And just talk about the album as a whole, expectations, what we thought. So I'm going to say, I do wish Till We Have Faces was last. I actually feel like Iridescent as a song could have been a really good song 5 or 6 in there, to give a little bit more of that like slower beginning. You get big again, and then basically bumping everything else down. I think that would have fit really well in general. So that would have been maybe a change I would have made to the album. But overall, I love the production. I love the overall sound. I love what they did as a band. They expected at almost every turn. What I expected was not what happened. So I might even need a couple listens and I might end up loving Iridescent as the closing track, but it's not what I expected. And so my expectations have been surpassed in so many areas. And then my expectations weren't quite reached for the closing track. But still, that doesn't put too much of a damper on the album. The album as a whole, right up there with any other Silent Planet album. I'm trying to not just be like in the heat of the moment, be like, this is the best Silent Planet ever. But if someone tells me it's their favorite Silent Planet, I will not argue after one listen. I totally understand what they would see in this album already. So this is literally day one. We are recording this the Friday it came out. So it is literally today. It just came out. It won't be released today, but yeah, that is our initial thought, or my initial thought. Nate, what is your initial thoughts on the album as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's like band fandoms or artist fandoms, and like your journey with an artist can be so interesting because you'll have something like, I'm trying to think of a really good comp, like maybe, I guess, all right, maybe like growing up, I guess we listen to like contemporary Christian stuff. You have a band like Reliant K or whatever, and it's like they release like pretty good, like strong pop punk records. And then all of a sudden they release just a trash record.
Yeah.
And you like lose faith in them.
Yep.
I think with Silent Planet, I already reserved a spot in my top 10 for them with this record because they haven't they haven't released that bad record yet.
Yep.
And it's like it hasn't been like love, oh, but I hated this, and now there's this lack of trust. I'm heading into the next Silent Planet record curious, like, hey, am I gonna like it, am I not gonna like it? As you said it before, they're 3 for 3, well, they're 4 for 4, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, it's just like, I think my biggest takeaway is just how much confidence I have in the band. And even as they've made a bunch of changes on this record, for them to pull it off so smoothly has been great. Yeah. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, honestly. Just like another day at what's that phrase? Or it's just like another day at the
office.
Yeah, basically another day at the office. That's what it is. Another day at the office for Silent Planet. Nothing new, nothing special for them because of how they consistently put out special and creative stuff. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. And the fact that I think with all past Silent Planet records, you're just rewarded by multiple listens. There is a million stuff I missed on that first listen, a million details that just went right over my head. And we're not even talking about the lyrics. Like, obviously that, like musically and vocally and production wise, so many things went over my head. So to be able to dive deeper, I'm like really looking forward to that.
All right. We're going to talk real quick about our favorite track, what we liked about that track specifically that made it our favorite. Nate, would you like to start? Do you have something or you need me to start?
Do you know what yours is?
I don't know what mine is, but I'm going to BS it. I'm going to say between two actually here. Oh, that's tricky. Let me go with Translate the Night. I'm just going to go there. I think just from, it's the first flushed out track we heard from the album, not counting Trilogy again. and just what they were able to do. It sounded so different. I loved hearing Garrett's screams on it. Especially that low part at the end was sweet. Yeah, I just felt like that was a pretty amazing Silent Planet track. Like when I heard it, it was right up there with Trilogy as far as first listen. Like, wow, this is really great stuff. So I have another one that I thought about making that. I might mention that after yours as well, because it might be worth mentioning. But yeah, maybe you'll take it. So what was your favorite track?
I'm gonna go with for usually it's hard enough to pick these when you actually know the record. It's so much harder when you don't know it. I'm gonna go with Second Son, probably.
Yeah. Yep.
I really like Second Son. I thought it
Yep.
I think Translate the Night was definitely up there for me as well.
Yeah.
Alive as a Housefire was up there.
Yep.
Till We Have Faces, Panopticon. Those are probably my favorites outside of Trilogy. I almost don't even like want to count Trilogy.
Yeah, I'm not counting Trilogy in this exercise.
But yeah, I think Second Son, the chorus was great. The screams were great. The heavy parts were great. I just thought it. And also I just love the play on words with everything they've done with past records and then doing Second Son. I don't know. I just really like that. I'm sure lyrically it's fantastic, but I have no idea.
When I said I was going to BS my way through it, I was between Translate the Night and Second Son. But then I realized that it might actually be Panopticon as far as my second favorite. I love what they did with the guitars, bass, whatever they ended up doing. And probably as far as like ones I'm excited to listen back to. And that's almost what I based it off of. Like, which one am I, if I were to pick one to go back to right now to listen to, it's one of those two probably for me. So yeah. So much I'm excited to dive into, the lyrics and get used to this album. Probably going to have it on repeat at least for the next week or two here. And then I'll probably go to an every other day thing at that point. So, all right, that does it for the album. Let us know your favorite song from this album. Let us know what you like. If there's any dislikes that you have on this album, let us know. We would love to talk more about this album with you. And yeah, check out all of our other episodes. This is the hardest album we've ever done for the episode. But hopefully you like some of the other bands on kind of on the list of bands that we've talked about and artists that we've talked through, and you can find some other podcasts that you like in our catalog. You can subscribe to the podcast, you can like the podcast, all that fun stuff. Just that goes a long way for us as the podcast, helps us out a whole lot. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to us on our socials. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at LDL Pod. And you can email us at longdistancelistening@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening and have a great day.
That wears Prada. That wears Gucci, bitch.